JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Friday, August 23rd, 2024. We have about 32 minutes to the open. Talk really quick about the markets. It's Jackson Hole Friday. Talk quick about that and go from there. But take a look at S&P closed down nearly an eighth of 0.8 tenths of a percent yesterday. No news, no catalyst really to speak of. The similar trend that's been playing out over the last couple of weeks where the markets rally at the open, then sell off into the late morning and then find a bounce similar to what happened on Tuesday. There was no bounce to speak of, and markets pretty much closed right near the lows outside of a little push into the end of the session. That 555 area on the SPY, I talked about it on Friday. It held like a stone to the upside as resistance. And then this week, we've come and tested that 3 of the 4 sessions this week so far, and it's held like a rock on the downside. So big spot. Hopefully, and I was curious if Fed Chair Powell is going to have some prepared remarks. Doesn't look like that's coming out. So we're going to all sit in bated breath waiting for his 10 o'clock speech here at Jackson Hole. There's a lot of conversation. It seems like every headline is trying to figure out what he's going to say. What's his, he's going to try and hint towards a big rate cut in September. Who knows? But right now, if you look at the option, well, the market is pricing in a 100% probability of a 0.25% rate hike at the September meeting and a 25% chance that it's a 0.5% rate cut. And then you go all the way to the end of the year, and there's a 100% probability of a 0.5% cut by December, and there's probabilities are starting to ratchet up for 4 rate cuts, 4.25% rate cuts. So will be interesting to see how this all plays out. The hope here is that he can just walk that tightrope, not too dovish, not too hawkish, set the stage for the rate cut cycle to start, and I think that'll bode well for the markets. And we saw yesterday the VIX was elevated for most of the session, and it was in the 16s, and then it started to spike. And to me, it just seemed like normal churn, chop, consolidation, into a possible event that might cause some volatility. Of course, I'm a little more biased to upside. I'm cautiously optimistic. Markets will hold their ground, and then we can start to rally to new all-time highs into next week. But obviously, Powell's going to be a big decider if that happens. So, will be interesting to see how this plays out today. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy market moving, but you never know. So it's definitely something to be aware of. So 555 on a SPY is important, and you look at the IWM 215 seems like an important support resistance. Just can't break through that. It opens over 216 the small caps, and then they sold off first before the market started to tumble. If finally the small caps can start to outperform, that 215 handle's got to break at some point. All right, so now individual names. I talked about my rant yesterday afternoon, and I've talked about Redfin the previous week after the housing starts came in lower than expected, and despite that, home builders and names like Redfin and Zillow rallied despite those weak numbers, and people kind of like scratching their heads. But to me, I think it's more of a proxy on the environment that's coming, which is lower rates, a pent up folks who are just sitting around waiting for rates to drop to, or at least to see the trend of rates dropping so they can go and either move out of their house or get a new home or what have you. And the thing with buying a house, and if people are doing the mortgages, if you, and not that they're going to be market experts or whatever, but if you think this is the end of the rate hike cycle, and now they're going to be in a cycle of cutting rates, then you can start to think you can get the house, and then a couple years down the line, if your house goes up in value, things like that, then you can start to refinance. So I think there's a lot of different levers that are going to be pulled for Redfin, and I talk about Redfin quite some time. I'm going to try and do a rant either later today or over the weekend, just a 5-minute ramble on the fundamental basis of Redfin and why I think, or at least the bull case on why I think it trades north of 15 in the coming months. So really like it. I added some more strikes yesterday. That's probably it for now. But if it does start to break out, and 1150 is kind of far away. I'm not saying it's hitting 1150 in the next day or two. That's probably the next level where I'll look to get some more strikes. And then obviously what I've been doing is as markets move in the right direction, stock moves in the right direction, I close them out to cover costs. So that's what I'll be looking to do. Roku. So sure enough, what happens? Unfortunately, Guggenheim upgrades Roku this morning as opposed to doing it Tuesday or Wednesday. But a good sign here. It's like a kick in the butt that Roku needed. It needs some kind of positive catalyst. So Guggenheim upgraded Roku to a buy from neutral this morning. $75 price target. The stock is gapping up over 64 in the pre-market. My spec lotto calls will probably be solidly green at the open. I may look to close some or all those out almost right at the open, depending on what those, yeah, I would assume they'll be 60 cents somewhere in there, and then look to add some later dated strikes. It's like a snowball waiting on a ledge on a cliff, and all it needs Roku just needs like a little kick, and I think it's off to the races. And I've talked about this theme in regards to what's going on with advertising. You have the trade desk. You have um, I'm trying to think of some of these other names, but this theme around monetizing content, advertisers matching the advertisers with the consumption, the consumer, and then I'm not saying it's the next big thing, but when you look at what goes on in regards to the internet, you have Meta, uh, Google, all these platforms that cater ads to those users, Instagram, so on and so forth. But now you have people consuming TV, and that's why I mean Fubo has been on a tear as well. But I think that's the next platform where folks are matched with content and advertisers that meet what they're looking for, and there's a big return on investment. And I think Roku's front and center with that, and they have years and years of data now too. So maybe that comes into play. So I can go on a rant for a while on Roku. I'm not going to do that. So really like that one. Hopefully, can lock my spec calls in for solid green. Go and get some strikes to play for a move over 70. Clear secure. Not going to talk too much about that one. Closed at its highest level since May of 2023. I think it's off to actually maybe I have the wrong well, I'll talk about it in a second, but nice bull flag setting up. I'm not the best when I do these annotations on the chart, but pretty much what a bull flag is. And I always talk about the bull flag, but I think it's one of those indicators, and it's not a taking our class. Thanks, Doc. It's not a be all end all for how it's not a guarantee that a stock's going to do what you think it's going to do. But when you have a big move on a stock, so that's the mast of the flag, right? The pole, and then you have consolidation, and that's the flag part of the bull flag. So once you you have the big move, then you consolidate that big move with that flag, then you have the next leg to the upside. So that's kind of how bull flag works. It means you have upside pressure buyers, then those buyers become sellers, or sellers have folks who are holding have limits, or what have you, when it hits that resistance, which if you take a look at it's about 28 bucks or so. And then once you work out those sellers, then the next leg to the upside comes. And typically what you do is you take half that bull flag. So I'm not taking it from the 18 level where you was pre-earnings. I mean, that would imply a $5 or $6 move. You take that flag and you divide it in half. So you look at 21 bucks or so up to 28 and change. That's $7. So you have a $3.50 or $4 implied upside, possible upside here. So 32, 33 bucks, I think, is almost, I don't like to say a guarantee or foregone conclusion, but really like that setup there. All right, so that's clear. SE, this is the one that closed at highs not seen since May of last year. 80. So solid. Well, green. It was solid green for most of the day yesterday, despite the market weakness. Pulled back a little bit into the close. Closed at 82.75. Its highest close since May of 2023. My thoughts here. I was looking at my September strikes. They were getting close to me in a double. Once those get to a double, I'll close some out to cover costs, and then I might look for some October strikes. It's like it's not it hasn't been the fastest mover over the last couple sessions after its big move from its earnings, but I do think its trend is to the upside, and it's going to be triple digits before the year's out. So I'll look for some opportunities to play that outcome, which the September strikes will look great, but I think there's more opportunities to add some more strikes. MDB, I talked about this a little bit yesterday afternoon. It was on the watch list yesterday morning, more because of Snowflake's earnings, and Snowflake reported a decent quarter. Stock was getting pummeled. It still sold off yesterday. And because of that, typically you have sympathy moves with some of these cloud names, and MDB is one of those names that typically moves off of what happens with Snowflake. And I was watching at the open. It hit lows and then bounced all the way up to 250. I think it was 258, 259 or so. So I kind of took it off the watch list. And then I was looking at snow. It was still showing some weakness into the noon hour. And then I looked at MDB again. I'm like, wow, that's going to fade. Got some puts, closed some out to cover most of my costs for nearly 100%. Held some into today. It's gapping over 250. 243 or so is the big handle. Not saying it can't reverse today and close higher, but if there is some weakness, especially the overall market would help it. But even despite that, I think it could sell off. And if it breaks 243, I think 240 break comes quick. So I'll hold the rest of my freebies depending on what it opens this morning. 253 or so might be my stop, but I might just hold those as a hedge just because of who knows what's going to happen at 10 o'clock. So that's MDB. Block, disappointing. So 2 of the last 3 sessions to the downside after hitting 67 and change. Still held its 50-day moving average at 63.87. It's gapping up a little bit here in the pre-market. Actually, 63.84 was the close, so right at the 50-day moving average. Still like that for 70, but it's I keep talking about block. It's like it's a divisive name, and Big Short piece came out last year, I think it was, and I'm sure there's people who are probably holding on to that until it comes to fruition, right? But I think there's opportunity for upside, especially if crypto starts to head to the upside, and it seems more to be uh, a sympathy move for the crypto names as opposed to just the overall market and things like that. So that's block. Baidu, I don't even want to talk too much about Baidu. Lucky to close out most of my September calls to cover costs on Wednesday before the close. Then yesterday morning reported a mixed bag, and Baidu. It's not like I don't think analysts were expecting Baidu to report this great uh, revenue beat and things like that. What they needed to do was give a story around AI, the driverless robo taxis, and what's going on with that, and how that's going to drive growth going forward. So they did talk about their core business, their marketing, advertising, search platform, which is what drives a majority of their revenues. I mean, the company has like 20 something billion dollars in cash. But for now, I'm probably not going to add anything just yet. Probably going to need the overall market to rally. Baba had news overnight. I think they're getting a specialized listing on and on the Hang Seng or not the Hang Seng in Taiwan. They have dual listing, right? So it's not a dilutive event, but it's supposed to bode well for Baba. And despite that, Baidu's still down in the pre-market. So I'll probably just sit on my hands on that one for now and possibly revisit. So that's Baidu. And then last but not least, Fiverr. And I did my rant a couple days ago when you start looking at some of these uh, capabilities that AI has, and now you look at Grok on X, and you can just type in and say, "Hey Grok, make me a picture of XXYZ," and it does it for you, and it's pretty remarkable. It does it pretty quick, and some of the uh, the I would the bull case in regards to Fiverr is that they're going to be a platform where these folks who are experienced in using AI to leverage things that you need to get done to create gigs that are going to help you get it done, right? So if you're looking to get a photo or a video done, and maybe uh, this person who has a gig on Fiverr can utilize their skills and experience to create a video or an image using AI, right? Where someone who doesn't have the experience won't be able to. So they pay for the gig, and it's good for Fiverr. It's good for the person who's buying, looking for the content. But now you look at, and it's just crazy what some of these, like what Grok can do, and some of these other AI platforms. I mean, spreadsheets. Just you can go down a list of some of these things that you might have needed to get someone to do before. Now can be done through Chat GPT and Grok and some of these other platforms. So I'm not saying that's the end of Fiverr. Fiverr, I think, will still have still have a space. But anyway, so I did that rant last week, and sure enough, Fiverr found some bids. It's right near where it hit its post earnings day. Still love it. I still have the September strikes. I'm not going to add any more, but hopefully that can start to just continue its uptrend, head over $30, and go from there. And I think that's about it, folks. I'm trying to think of some of these other names. Definitely watching the VIX here today. So, it's similar to what happened after the 1987 Nikkei crash. Called 12% to the downside overnight. Then Monday, markets open, VIX soared up to 65. And then the next week, despite the market finding a bid, the VIX kind of hovered around 2021 until we got that CPI data. So, I mean, probably a similar scenario here with Fed Chair Powell. Once he can come out and quell some concerns, hopefully ease worries that maybe he's overly hawkish or dovish, and then the VIX can kind of start to reset and get back down to 15. It is down 4% right now in the pre-market, so probably a good sign. But closed at 18 and change. I just want to see it, or no, 17 and change, 1750. It hit 1806 at the end of the day. If it can find, if the markets find some footing and the VIX gets under 15, I think that'll bode well into the weekend. And the S&P is still up 0.3% for the week. So it's not like yesterday's pullback pushed us into the red. We have a 3-week winning streak. I think it all bodes well. That's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.